September 30th. The year is slowly coming to an end. Slowly. But since it's the end of September, I'm coming to you with my first wrap-up video. I read 4 books this month, which I'm actually pretty proud of because I was in the middle of a huge reading slump. So yeah, I read 4 books, and I'm going to talk to you about them and what I thought about them, and try not to spoil anything. Anyway, so the first book I read was A Reaper at the Gates. It is the 3rd book in the Ember and the Ashes series, which... oh my gosh. I thought an Ember was hard to get through, emotionally. And then I read A Torch Against the Night, and I didn't think it could get any worse. And then I read A Reaper at the Gates, and Saba Tahir literally ripped out my heart, like Regina style, Evil Queen, ripped out my heart, took a stiletto, and just stabbed it. That's what happened. So, in this book, we see our main characters taking more of a stand against, or continuing to take a stand against the Martial Empire and the Commandant. But we also see some characters like Elias transitioning into a new position that he has to adjust to, which, don't talk to me about that. Also, the Me First scene. I was not ready for that. I wasn't ready for the Me First scene. We almost got it. We almost got there. And then Saba was like, nope, you don't get it. You're giving it to us in the next book, right, though? Right? I'm just going to assume you're giving it to us in the next book. Anyway, I really enjoyed A Reaper at the Gates, even though it completely destroyed me. Loved... Okay, I don't like Helene. I really don't. But she's like trying to work her way back into my good graces. I'm not involved in the story in any way, but Helene kind of took a few steps forward for me. The Commandant can go jump off a cliff. I need the Commandant to go jump off a cliff. And I want to say I would like everyone to be happy by the end of the 4th book, but I know that's not what Sub is going to give us. The second book I read was A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. That was a bad decision. I should not have read that book immediately following A Reaper at the Gates, because while I was trying to patch my heart back together after reading A Reaper at the Gates, A Song of Wraiths and Ruin just tore it apart all over again. So that was A Song of Wraiths and Ruin was actually the first book I read for the Beyonce-a-thon, which was the Beyonce-themed read-along that I did, or readathon that I did this month, and it was actually a lot of fun. I usually don't do read-alongs because I usually don't do readathons just because the challenges and TBRs just don't mix well with my reading style, but this one was a lot of fun, and the first challenge was to read a book by a Black author, so I read A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. So, in A Song of Wraiths and Ruin, we follow Karina and we follow Malik, and Karina is a princess who has lost her father and she's lost her sister, and she's incredibly sheltered by her mother, the queen, and then she has to kind of step into this position of leadership that she's not quite ready for yet. And then we follow Malik, who has an older sister and a younger sister. He is the middle child, and he has to find a way to get his sister back from this spirit, and the way that he has to do it is he has to kill the princess, so he has to kill Karina. I loved this book so much because not only was it just beautifully told and had so many and had so much West African folklore woven throughout it, which was really nice to read. It was just told in such a beautiful way, but it also took on the topic of mental health, which was something that I really appreciated, because I feel as if that's something that is still heavily stigmatized in a lot of Black communities. So it was really nice to be able to read a book where both characters were dealing with their own mental health issues. The other thing that I really appreciated about the book was that it did include a trigger warning. I'm a huge proponent of trigger warnings in books, because I think that if you're prepared for what you're reading, you're going to enjoy the book more. And because I knew what was coming and I was prepared, I was able to enjoy the book and, stop when I needed, but nothing really caught me off guard. So that was something else that I really enjoyed about A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. The third book that I read this month was also for the Yonsei-a-thon. It was for the nonfiction book challenge, and I read Life in Motion by Misty Copeland, which, excuse me, is the autobiography by Misty Copeland, who was the first African-American principal ballerina at the American Ballet Theater in New York City. I've been meaning to reread this book, partially because it's a good autobiography to revisit, but also for me, I used to be a ballerina. Probably from the ages of about 5 to 10, 11, I was in dance class a lot. So there were a lot of things in the book that I was able to relate to, certain things she talked about with dance, or certain things among students that I was able to recognize and relate to because of things I experienced when I was in dance class. But I also think I enjoyed it because as someone who grew up in dance, I was fortunate enough to go to a studio where I had a black ballet teacher. And there were other black dancers in my class. But not every black girl who dances ballet is afforded with that. Not all of us see dance teachers who look like us, or other students who look like us, because it is still there's still a lot of gatekeeping, particularly when it comes to classical ballet. And I think Misty's story being out there opens up a lot of little girls and little boys to the possibility that, wow, this is something that I can do. It's not something that's, exclusively for someone who is white, or for someone who has straight hair, or for someone who has a specific body type. So I think it's a really important story because, again, it's representation. And I think particularly for younger students, younger kids, the more that they can see themselves somewhere that they want to be, the more they believe that they can achieve it. And the last book I read this month was The Sound of Stars. I did my reread of The Sound of Stars for the Yonsei-a-thon. It was for their Black Parade challenge, and that challenge was all about intersectionality. And part of the reason I loved The Sound of Stars is because one of the things it does really well is tackles intersectionality. So in this book, we have Janelle and we have Morris. And Janelle is a human and Morris is an alien. The Earth has been taken over by this alien species called the Elori. And basically they're dominating the humans. They've completely taken over everything. And they're working on kind of making the humans these basically mindless drones. And Morris and Janelle, or Ellie as she goes by, have to take a road trip across the country from New York to California in order to stop this from happening. And I loved every moment of it. So one of our main characters, Ellie, she is black, she is plus size, she is queer, and she deals with anxiety. And that was something that I loved to see. I loved in this book. There's so many facets to us as people. We're not just one thing. A lot of us deal with those intersections. So to have a character who is not only black, but also dealing with mental illness, but also dealing with how she's queer, was just honestly a breath of fresh air, because so many times, we get told, oh, you're only this one thing, you're only allowed to be this one thing, you're only allowed to be black, or you're only allowed to be bi, or you're only allowed to have this or that. But that's just not the reality for a lot of us. We're all dealing with multiple things at multiple times. So I was really happy to see a book where we had a character who was dealing with those intersections. And it wasn't just that it dealt with the intersectionality, it also handled topics of racial injustice, systemic racism, and that was something that I didn't think I was going to get in a sci-fi book. But here it is. But anyway, and I'm probably going to do a more in-depth review slash happy rant about this book because it really just does mean so much to me. That was another reread I did this year. I read it, I think, I read The Sound of Stars probably back right after quarantine started, so somewhere between March and April. And when I saw that there was a challenge for the Yonsei-a-thon for intersectionality, I said, I have to reread this book. So I did. But I think one of my other favorite things about this book is because we have Morris, who is this alien, who is this humanoid alien type species, humanoid alien, or alien who's made to look like a human, but is on Earth. There are just all these things that he just doesn't understand about humans, and I really enjoyed that. That was something I really loved, because I feel like, every chapter I was like, well, what's dating? Why wouldn't you date me? He doesn't understand what dating is. And I have so many pages tabbed off with just Morris not understanding human things because I love that about the book. So, yeah. Anyway, those are the 4 books that I read this month. That's going to wrap up my wrap-up. Get it? Ha. I'm funny. No, I'm not. Anyway, so we're going to start October. I'm going to get started on my October TBR because there's a lot of books in October that I want to read. Porn. Ooh. Okay. I'm okay. So I'm going to get started on that. I will see everyone in the next video. Give a like, give a subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I hope everyone had a good month, and I hope October starts off wonderfully for all of you. I am sending good vibes and manifestations everyone's way. Bye!